Welcome. This is my music channel, Chuck Sturgeon Music, and on here I release my music on YouTube. As you know, it's also in Spotify and all these other spots you can find it on. But I also post videos on my recording and songwriting process, how I put things together. Welcome to my studio. So this is part two. Today's video is part two of a two-part series that I started. The first series was an unboxing of the StudioLive 16R rack mixer from Presonus. And if you didn't watch that, just go looking for that somewhere down in the videos. And on that, I just presented the inputs and outputs of the system. So we're going to go a little bit further today. I'm actually going to power it up and bring it up using one of the apps that Presonus provides and show it as if you were taking it out to a bar to use it as a normal mixer, because that's possible. And then I'm going to show you how to use it, how I'm going to use it mainly as an audio interface to my my digital audio workstation, my DAW, which I use StudioOne, whatever the latest 7 or whatever the latest is right now. So let's get started. So I've already plugged this in. I've got it plugged into power. I've got the USB plugged into my Mac here that I'm recording this on. And I'm going to power it up and see where we go. So let's flip over here to our screen. And you can see I've already got universal control pulled up here. And you can see if I zoom in, you'll see I have fader port 16 hooked up. Universal Control is one of those apps that Presonus provides that basically manages all of their hardware to a certain degree. The fader port 16 I use here. It's sitting here in front of me, and I use the faders and all the different knobs to do my mixes. So it shows up in here because Universal Control, when I started off, it found it connected. So I'm going to power this guy on now, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it pops up here in Universal Control. Okay, power is on. It's beeping red, blinking red. And I think when it goes blue, it should show up. There, it's blue, and there we go. It's working good. We've got our 16R showing up in Universal Control. And so now from here, all you got to do is click on this anywhere in here, actually, and it will bring up the mixer. Ta-da! And you can see here that I've already got a microphone plugged in to input number 2. I have a Lewitt microphone. It's sitting right here next to me, and it's picking up what I'm saying on here as well as me talking through this SM58 that's going through my Focusrite. So the Focusrite is my main system right now, my main audio interface. And I got the 16R to add another 16 channels so I can record stuff here in my studio, like if I want to record a full drum set, or I can take it out on the road to things locally anyway and use it as a mixer. And that's what I plan to do this summer. I have a couple of gigs that I'm probably going to use it with as a mixer and have 16 inputs, and then we're going to record that. The cool thing about it is it's going to record what we play live, and then I can bring it back to StudioOne and mix it properly. So if you bring it up like this, it is a mixer and it functions just like a mixer. You just got to do it by hand. There's a lot of buttons you have to be aware of, a lot of settings, and it took me a number of days to figure this out. I am not familiar with how digital mixing works to a certain degree. When you get, plug it into USB, it was all new learning experience. I read a lot of manuals. I read the manuals and I watched a whole lot of YouTube videos. But there wasn't a whole lot of videos out there about the 16R. There's a lot of StudioLive Series 3 videos about how to hook up your StudioLive 32SC or, any things that already have faders and stuff like that. But there wasn't a whole lot out there for this 16R. And the ones I did find were 24R, for instance, but they were showing you how to actually set it up to run as a mixer live. And not a whole lot to how to set it up to use as an audio interface. So I'm going to quickly go through this piece right here. I'm not going to use it a whole lot as a live mixer for myself, but if you plug it in, brings up like this, everything comes in. I got 16 inputs. I got a talkback channel. I got a main over here on the far right, but you can move that so that it's over here. You've got auxiliaries, mixes, you've got groups, and then each channel, if you're familiar with Presonus, they have what they call a fat channel. Each channel has a fat channel plug-in per se, and that includes a gate, a compressor, an equalizer, and a limiter. And all these can be turned on, boop, turn it on, it's off, turn it on there. So I'm not going to go through that in detail. You can watch their stuff. If you have a channel that's running like this channel here, for one thing, to choose a channel, you have to click below here or up here. Those are the only two places. You can't click anywhere else on here. It gets a little frustrating. So I'm going to choose this, channel 2. And right now, like I said, I have a Lewitt plugged into it right here. It's condenser mic. I've got 48 volt power turned on. None of these buttons or anything of that are on the actual 16R unit. All you have on the unit, if you watch the other video, is just the XLR Neutrik inputs. That's it. Everything is controlled in this mixer. So I have 48 volts. I've got this preset that I can turn up and down here. If you see, we turn it down and it goes down. You can turn on a high-pass filter. In this case, I've got one on down 60 hertz. This is the phase, if you need phasing turned on. This is talkback. I'm not going to mess with that because it kind of turns things funky. And this is telling me it's going, you can route it to the main or not. So it's going to the main right there. And you can add some delay on there if you want. Again, this, and then you have, of course, access to all these things on the fat channel. So that's the front, that's the mixing channel. You can flick over, put this button here while you're selecting a channel, like 2 here. You can flick this button, and over here you can set the color of the channel. I've set it to blue. And you can set the input. In my case, I'm using the analog inputs because I've plugged in a mic into the front of this thing. But you could pull from the SD card, from your network, from a USB, very flexible to a certain degree. And then you have your options of pre or post fader on your digital sends. And you have this little, I've got a microphone down here, but you can choose and put an icon down there if you want. You don't have to, but those are available there. Flicking over to the routing on this, you've got I for input, O for output, and this takes a little bit of learning myself. I had to take some learning in YouTube watching, but this is your inputs. You see you have 16 inputs right here, and you can see I have chosen number 2 right now, so number 2 is lit up. But if I go here and choose 3 and then go back over here, it should light up number 3. Yeah. This is your AVB routing, I believe, and this is your USB, which is coming back from your DAW, and I'll get to that in a minute. You cannot edit this stuff when you're in interface mode, and I actually have this set to interface mode right now. But I can go, let me go quickly turn that off real quick. So now that's off. We go back over, and you can see now that I can mess with the USB routing here and change things around. Then you have SD card routing. Stereo linking options. I haven't really played with this, so I can't say much about that. So let's flick over to the big deal, which is the settings over here on the right cog wheel here. And this took me a bit of learning to figure this out. Here in settings, you have permissions, a bunch of stuff I didn't touch. Here's the button where you can check for firmware updates and update the system right then. And then over here, you've got your mixer, your fat channel, which takes you to the fat channel, unfortunately. Your sends, which takes you to your sends. And then your meter, which takes you to your meter, which is your input meters here. And then back to mixer. Boom. And now you go back to settings. Across the top, you've got your network setup. I haven't played with this at all, but you know, if you got AVB inputs, things like that, you would be here. Backup, haven't played with this. Plugins, I guess you can install some plugins and put them on the channels. That's pretty cool, but I haven't played with that yet. User profiles, haven't messed with that right now. Digital patching. Now, you got to be careful here because if you change some things around, things don't work anymore. So here you've got channels. This is your input source, your analog. Again, I'm pulling from the front, the XLR here. So, of course, I've set all these to XLR. The digital return, this is your DAW or your computer coming back to the box here, to the 16R. AVP I haven't messed with, but again, that has to do when you're doing stage monitoring, things like that. USB, I haven't really needed to change anything there, and SD card. The input patching, I haven't really messed with this. AVB, again, don't mess with. USB. Now here is where you have to set up, if you want to be able to hear, if you find yourself not being able to hear your DAW coming back out your mains, let's say you've plugged into your main, it's this digital return left and digital return right, and that comes from USB 17 and 18. How did I know that? Well, I pulled up this using StudioLive as an audio interface manual. And down here in the interface mode routing charts, you'll see for 16R, your main mix left and rights. Let me see if I can scroll in there. Are USB sends 17 and 18. USB return 17 and 18. This makes a difference, or you won't hear anything coming out of, if you plug your speakers in the back of your 16R, for instance, you won't hear anything coming out if that's not set properly. All right. And then you have to set it in here, of course, USB. Your analog sends, these are your mixes coming out of the back. So you headphone mixes, for instance, Q mixes out of Studio One. Your AVB sends, I've not played with this. The USB sends we went over kind of, and then your SD card. When you record on the SD card, which I haven't tried yet, but when you record on the SD card, it records in stereo. Even though you have maybe 16 channels rolling, it's only going to bump it down to stereo based on your mix, your mix as you're going. So that's all the settings here on this page. One thing I want to point out is if you want to be able to hear out of the headphone jack in the front of the unit, make sure you come over here to Phones Q Source and set that to main. If you don't set that and it's on something else, you're not going to hear anything through your headphones. Your appearance over here, I didn't mess with this DCA groups. I did turn on colorized channels so you could colorize things, and I like the dark mode. Otherwise, I didn't really mess with the rest of this stuff. So that's basically the setup as far as using it as a live mixer. So I'll bump back over here to mixer, and you can see I still have the Lewitt here running right there. What's next? Well, you want to use this as an audio interface. That's what I got it for. So I'd have an extra 16 channels to record from. Well, you want to come over here again to the settings page and click on that right there, and you get a notice. Turning on interface mode will set up all USB send and return routing to support this mode, and disables your flex mixes. So the mixer pretty much doesn't work anymore then when you do this. So I'm going to say OK. That turns that on, and we are good to go. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring up Studio One 7. Okay, so when you bring up Studio One, you're going to want to change this over. Like I have a Focusrite Thunderbolt right now being used, but you're going to want to change this over to StudioLive 16R. Click OK. And now I'm just going to pull up the dummy song that I'm working on. So when you come in here, you want to go into I/O and double check, because now it's the 16R, and you got 16 channels. Well, more than that, but really 16 channels across the top. These others are your RCA jacks, things like that. So you got these 16 channels across the top, and what you want to do is make sure you got them set up for inputs, output, input, and then for outputs right now I have 17 and 18 are set up for outputs. This is incorrect. This should say just outputs. And so the inputs are here: channel 1, input 1, channel 2, etc. Okay. Then when I go and I pull up a new track and I say I'm on input 2, and then click OK, and then we've got the Lewitt here ready to record. Let me bang on it. There you go, banging on it. So now I've set up the 16R to record. And what's cool about having the audio interface mode is that all those things you saw, let me click over. So all of these things you see, 48 volts and the pre and all that, HPF, well, all of that is set up over here as well. So you can see the 47 dB. That's what I've got my preset to, 47 dB. You can see the 48 volts is turned on. 48 volts is turned on. And if I click on the fact channel, it seems that I have a high pass filter turned on. And if I made any other changes, see, it has a high pass, it would show up here as well. And I can go and make these changes. Let's say I turn on the compressor and the equalizer. If I go over here, boom, compressor, equalizer, turned on, turn them off. So you can control now the 16R within Studio One anyway. I don't know if this works with other DAWs, but with Studio One, it's meshed together. It works really well. So that's pretty cool. So that's how you would set up your Studio One, your StudioLive 16R for an audio interface. Now, what happens if I want to record more than 16? Well, I still have the Focusrite, and I thought about selling it. One of my options was to buy the 24R and sell the Focusrite, but I thought, I have the 8. I can go ahead and do the 8, and then I have 16. That gives me 24 complete inputs if I need it. But it's not straightforward when you want to put these two together and use them as one big input. So I just learned this morning that you can aggregate your inputs. So let me show you. You have to go to your MIDI setup, and then as you can see, I have the Focusrite Thunderbolt here, and I have the StudioLive 16R here. What you do, and like I said, I learned this morning, that you can do this. Come down here to the plus, and you create an aggregate device. This is on a Mac, by the way. I don't know if you can do this on Windows, but create a aggregate device, and you click the one you want to be first. In my case, I will probably use the Focusrite mostly because my speakers are plugged into that right now. So I'm going to use Focusrite and then my 16Live Studio 16R, and you see, so you can see it puts them both here. And now you have to make sure you make a note that channel 1 of StudioLive 16R is actually channel 21. You have to make sure you remember that. And then the output channels here, you got your inputs and your output channels. And you want to make sure you click on this drift correction. I know you need it on for 16R. I'm not sure about the Thunderbolt. I've seen people leave this turned on, turned off, turned off. So, and that's pretty much it. You are then set up, and then you can go down here and you can actually rename this. Say, CUSRITE plus 16R. And that tells me that they're combined. So once I've got that set up, and then you have to completely get out of Studio One. All right, this is where it gets a little complicated when you do the aggregate thing. So I'm completely out of Studio One. So you come back into Studio One. You have to get out and get back in. And then down here you can come and pull up this. And then you should be able to see your Focusrite plus 16R. And then boom. And you say okay to that. And now I'm going to just pull up a new song. I'm going to start a new song. I don't want to mess with the songs that I have. Start a new song here. Come over here to Song Setup and then Audio I/O Setup. So now you can see that I have all the Focusrite inputs, which is 8 XLR Neutrix. Then you've got some SPDIFs, some loops, some ADAT stuff out back, and then the StudioLive 16R, and you got all the 16 channels here, and then you got these extra ones that I'm not completely familiar with, but I think they're USB. Remember when I said you got to remember 21 is the channel? Well, Studio One has already set that up for you. So I've come in here and I've set up Focusrite. You got your stereo. I've set up each 2 sets stereo, and then I have mono. And then I've set up the 16R, all 16 inputs as mono inputs. Okay. So that is all set up, and that's set up for the song, and you can make it the default if you want, which in this case I did and set up. So I can get out of this, I pull up a track. I got the Lewitt plugged in right here. It's plugged into input 2. You can see it's still over here on input 2. And then I can go down here and say, I have to remember it is on input 2 of the 16R. So I come down here to 16R input 2. The output is main right now. We'll just leave it like that for now because my mains are going out. And then that creates a track. I'm going to pull up the mixer here. Now you see that it has picked up from the 16R the 47 dB, 48 volts, the fat channel settings. All of that is here, right here. And if I press record and there and monitor, now I'm actually hearing in my earphones here that are plugged into the Focusrite, I am hearing this mic and now that mic because the output's coming out the Focusrite headphones as well. Pretty cool. I have 24 channels of audio input now, and that's plenty for my little studio. And then I also have a little 1U that I can take out and do recordings at a bar or any kind of event where I can set things up and record 16 inputs. Or if I really wanted to, I could take the Focusrite out with me as well and have 24 inputs. But that's a lot of tearing down of the studio to do that. But, who knows? We'll see. So, there you go. That's my little off-the-wall, put together, whatever you want to call it, on how to use the 16R for audio interface, and also how to combine. If you already have an audio interface and you don't know what to do with it, if you're on a Mac anyway, you can use it and you have more inputs. And that's the whole reason I only bought the 16 was because I knew I already had the 8. I was very disappointed when I first got it, and I couldn't figure out a way to put the two together until this morning. I watched some videos, some very informative videos, and thanks to them, I was able to set it up. And now I have the 24. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Give me a subscribe and a like if this was helpful. And check out my music. This is my music channel. Or check out my retirement channel, Retirement Ain't Easy. There I talk about retirement and vinyl collecting and things like that. Appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Peace.